So we've just got back from seeing The Substance at the cinema, and well, what did we all think? Spoilers in a little bit. We'll do non-spoilers first. So Demi Moore starring as Elizabeth Sparkle in this one. What do you reckon, Mike? What are your initial thoughts from just coming back?
Brilliant. I thought it was extremely good. I mean, I went into it thinking, well, expecting quality because everybody around me, or not around me that I hear about on the internet, had a lot of high praise to talk about. And we're talking about like it being the horror movie of the year, and I don't know whether I'd say that right now, but it's definitely up there. Perhaps it's
yeah. No, it's great. I've seen the same as you. I've got a friend in London who went to see it recently and was raving about it and stuff. So yeah, really good stuff. What about you, Dave?
Rave-worthy for sure.
It is. Yeah, it is rave-worthy.
I mean, I've been excited about it for months. I was looking forward to seeing it at Fright Fest, and I was glad that we missed it, but glad that we finally got to see it. And I'd heard nothing but rave reviews, especially since it got a wider release. Yeah, it absolutely delivered. And I mean, it's pretty fresh in my mind right now, but I would say, yeah, probably my favorite film at the cinema that I've seen this year so far. Like, really, really that good. Yeah.
But I mean, it follows really Elizabeth Sparkle's character, Academy Award winning. She is the rage of all Hollywood. She's in everybody's minds. And then we follow up basically opening with her much older and being told that she's past it. She's coming up to 50. She's out of there. And she's going to be replaced with a younger model. And that basically is the through line throughout. Bit of aging, stuff about aging. And
yeah, the pivotal intro bit, basically, that probably was in the trailers, is her overhearing Dennis Quaid, network boss, basically slanderizing her off and saying, get rid of the old bitch and that kind of thing. And Dennis Quaid was also awesome in this.
Yeah, I mean, the entire cast was amazing.
Yeah, they're all really good. You've got the Sue, Margaret Qualley.
Yeah.
Margaret Qualley. You got Dennis Quaid as Harvey, Mr. McMahon, as I thought of him a bit.
He was definitely a bit McMahon.
Like a ringmaster type.
Any kind of narcissistic, horrible boss man. That's basically what he is.
But I would, in this non-spoiler part review, there's not too much you can go into without actually destroying what you would want to go in to see it, as basically a bit blind. You don't want to know much of the story or what happens. Really split into 3 acts, 3 separate chapters.
Correct. Yeah.
And they all kind of follow
each
a certain
wilder
character.
than the last.
I would say the first 2 are pretty kind of on the rails and kind of what I was expecting, but the final sequence like blew my mind.
Places. It goes places.
Yeah.
Replete with really good effects and good horror scenes and stuff as well, though. Yeah, very, very Cronenbergian. Yeah.
So I'd recommend going to see it, and if you haven't yet, book your ticket, go and see it. Pause this, and then come back now because we
are
going to
this shit.
What
the hell are you doing listening to us?
Exactly. Yeah.
So we're going to go into spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What the fuck happened in that third act?
It was the monster. It was Monstro.
Elizasu, yeah.
Christ.
And it was great. It was 10 out of 10. It was like the society, but even more bloody and big budget, basically. Like blood everywhere, faces and eyes and wild card places that I love.
It reminded me of something out of Resident Evil that you face. Something.
It's pretty Resi 2 or Resi 4 Mutants.
Yeah, or as you say, like Cronenberg, especially early Cronenberg.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was thinking of Society as well. I think Society is the best comparison.
Yeah.
I said already, I was thinking of The Elephant Man. I am a human being. I was thinking about that.
It's me.
I'm Sue.
And so on. Yeah.
It was. It takes a second to regain composure after watching that. I mean, you two were chatting away, and I was sort of like mulling it over in the credits.
It had to take a second.
Fucking hell.
It's brilliantly directed. First of all,
beautifully shot. Beautifully shot. The sets are amazing. Like very colourful. Like the perspective, like the kind of perspective tricks that they use, kind of reminded me of The Shining and some of the especially the earlier bits.
Creates a lot of good like imagery in the shots, right? Like with the the balance of the colours.
Yeah.
It's that
There's
long
a lot
old
of red
corridor.
at the end.
Yeah.
That long old corridor, which actually you say the shine in the red and the blood coming down off the walls, a bit like the elevator,
And also the bathroom that she uses to go.
Yeah, I mean that
Yeah.
like that like that bathroom will be iconic. I think. Like I mean like the image of Demi Moore like on the floor naked with like her back cut open, which is like plastered all over.
Well, that is the
poster.
all over the poster. Yeah, but
poster,
that's an all timer horror image. Like
Yeah.
that will go down in history.
It'll last.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting some of the themes within it. There's a lot of this. Well, you'd think her character Sparkle kind of follows Demi Moore herself, like the aging actress. It's kind of got that sort of nice, almost meta, right? It's almost
very
meta.
well casted by getting Demi Moore
Yeah.
involved with it. Yeah, getting a super famous, or at least ex super famous actress.
Yeah.
Yeah, and likewise Margaret Qualley as well, who's like on like a massive rising star in Hollywood at the moment. Like
Mirroring a character.
yeah,
in the movie.
exactly. Yeah.
And it's a big thing with aging women in media and in films, in just our culture in general on the TV. Over here, this is my little off rant to do with this, but you've seen recently, this happens again and again. The BBC do this all the fucking time. So you've got Sue Barker, the tennis player, who then hosted Wimbledon, hosted A Question of Sport for about 30 years, who got basically booted out of A Question of Sport because they wanted to revamp it and make it all kind of modern and different. And what made me laugh about the whole situation was that they started saying, for the first time ever, we've got a female team captain, when actually the leader of the show was a female figure who was in charge of the two men in that scenario. And it just annoys me that they keep saying that women are too old when you've got someone like who was Bruce Forsyth, was on TV till he was about 90. And you've got this again and again with women in media and films.
It's a theme that's pervaded for like years and years. Sunset Boulevard is one of the most famous movies from the 50s, and that's basically like this. One of the principal actors in that is a character that used to be famous in Hollywood and no longer is. I think it's something that's been in movies since pretty much there was spoken word in movies, since the first guard changed after silent film.
It's funny, you know, that there's been so much rightful kind of progressive attitudes all over. You know, things are changing all the time, but this thing about like aging females in Hollywood persists.
Yeah,
and
it's just, I think, honestly, it's more than Hollywood. I think it's in the Western world. We kind of bin our aging females more than we do the aging men in the world. So aging women just get booted out because they don't have that sparkle anymore, if you see what I mean. Like, they don't have that sexual attraction, because that's what is seen by the heads of these
that's what
departments.
Dennis Quaid says, right? After you're 50, you've lost
Yeah,
it, basically.
exactly.
well, they're still there, but they're relegated to side roles as they're not the main woman, the protagonist.
Exactly, and they
they're
have to
like
put up
the
with
mother or the grandmother or whatever.
They're no longer, in a way, there is this sort of mother figure type to the younger person, and they lose that sexuality. But a woman who hits 50 doesn't suddenly become asexual or something. They're still a sexual being, and it's just this societal way of looking at it that keeps popping up again.
Well, you know, there's
again.
like a brilliant example in House of the Dragon. I don't know if either of you have watched it.
I have not.
Seen some of it.
Yeah, Olivia Cook. She's an English actress. She's about our age. I think she's about 30 now. And she plays a grandmother. And the actors playing her children are like 1 year younger than her, 2 years younger than her. And, you know, it's very obvious, right, why they did that. And as she's spoken about it herself, you know, that it's kind of insane, really, that they're doing this, that they're not, they didn't give this role
To an older actor.
Yeah, and because they have a time jump as well in season 1 where they changed the cast.
Yeah.
And Emily Carey, who played the younger version of that character, I think there's like less than 10 years between them. But that was the perfect opportunity, right, for them to cast an older woman, and they didn't. And it's striking. And
It's
that was
interesting.
last
This is
year.
modern. This keeps happening again and again and again. I mean, when you do cast these older actresses in things, it works out well most of the time. You've got Diana Rigg in Game of Thrones. How incredible was that role that she played in that? Although, again, it is like that mother type figure.
Yeah.
But it is...
But it's one of the core characters, at least for a couple
Yeah.
of seasons, right? And it gives her the opportunity for full on acting. She's not just being the mother figure or the grandmother figure. She's one of the
Yeah, she's a big
players
player.
in
Yeah,
the-
yeah.
But I think this
the plot.
film, The Substance, opens up the conversation. I think that's part of it, is this conversation about aging women in Hollywood and in media in general that needs to be talked about a bit more often, I think, because I think it is too often that these women just get fired out of jobs, or they don't get these roles anymore.
You don't see them very often. Like me and Dave in the car on the way back here were talking about this basically because he'd confused Annie McDowell for Demi Moore.
Yeah.
But
Well, we don't need to go into that.
We'll go into the nitty gritties of that. But yeah, we haven't seen like Demi Moore for the last 20 years. I couldn't think of. She has been in things. We looked at the casting, but not nothing that I stood out. And apart from Ready or Not, right?
That was Andy McDowell, mate.
Oh yeah, shit. Well, that's going back to the confusion. Then, yeah. Same with Andy McDowell. Apart from Ready or Not.
When they first introduce Sue into the story, I almost thought they were going to write out the Elizabeth Sparkle character at that point, and she was just going to take over entirely. In my mind, I was thinking, oh, that must have been Demi Moore's cameo almost within the film.
It kind of implied that, what with the chapter headings, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they changed. Yeah, we had a title card for her. Yeah.
But then she does come back in, but she becomes, I think one of the main themes for me in this movie was this idea of being reclusive, which comes with age. So a lot of the aging process, and you become isolated, and isolation in general. So what do most older people do? They would sit down and watch TV. They watch these crappy QVC style channels, or they watch game shows.
The word lonely is used and so on. And basically like a hate or annoyance with the youth basically instills in her. She gets older and older because of the life being sucked out of her, and she has more of these like old person stereotypical traits about her. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's very telling, right, that like her apartment has a massive window looking right at a billboard poster of Sue. So she just has to look at that, essentially a younger version of herself.
Yeah.
Right, and just be reminded of it.
Which is quite sad,
Like,
because
constantly.
presumably she had that apartment when it was her on that billboard.
I mean, I guess so, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, she has the perfect look at the city, doesn't she? Her whole being there is very much perfect. It's a bit like how Frasier is in Seattle and gets that perfect view of Seattle. She gets that perfect view of whatever city that was, Hollywood.
Yeah, Hollywood.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like it makes Hollywood kind of omnipresent in the viewer's mind. Like you're always looking at it through that big window, right? Like past that billboard, you see Hollywood, and you can see what it's saying, right? That it's really clearly communicating to the viewer that this is Hollywood. Like this is what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's communicated very well right at the start, like literally in the opening when you see the
that's a brilliant
star
shot.
put in, and then over time people are no longer
That's a really good
talking
opening.
about it. They're no longer even acknowledging it.
I
And
must
the man
say-
with his burger drops it. Yeah, that's great.
I booked the tickets for this, and I for a second thought we were in the wrong movie, because I was just like, because I went in completely blind to this. I had no idea about anything about it. So when it kind of opens up with this, almost looking like it's in the 80s and stuff, I was like, are we in the right cinema screen for this? I hope there's a title card that says The Substance soon, but it was in the end the USB stick that gave it away to me. But I was like, thank fuck for that, because I was a bit on edge at first. Like I led you into like to see some sort of chick flick or something.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about it, but if we'd walked into the wrong cinema and saw the wrong thing, the intro was good. So I was
It definitely.
yeah.
That opening shot was
fine.
amazing, and what I didn't expect and loved as well that they called back to it right at the end. But I feel like the final shot of the film as well was on the
Callback.
She looked a bit like the sun from the Teletubbies.
She
in that
did.
final
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
Yeah,
Little bit. Yeah.
So, do you think then the third act of the movie added to it? You would say that it heightened the movie, or did it change your perception at all?
I think that's the cherry on top that basically like took it into full horror territory, took it into full, basically the end of this journey, the Cronenberg kind of thing. You wouldn't have done that if you didn't have a big budget, I imagine, but the visual effects are amazing, and up till that point I was loving it, but then as soon as the monster bit kicked in, I was really loving it. So
Yeah, I would say it didn't change my opinion of the film, but definitely up until that point, there were so many other things about the film to appreciate, but the plot, I could see exactly where it was going straight away. As soon as they introduced the rules for the substance, I was like, okay, I know what's going to happen. Like they're going to be, we're going to follow the younger version, we're going to follow the older version. They're going to end up like
in contest.
In contest, and one of them would win, and then probably one would kill the other one, and then that one that was left alive was going to get punished for that and probably die. And probably it was going to be the younger killing the older, and it was probably going to be that the younger would be on stage and would die on stage, or something would happen on stage. And that was more or less exactly
something did happen on stage.
Yeah. But
it took it that extra mile.
And
because I hadn't. I mean, it is foreshadowed by the fact that the bottle's got one use only on it.
It's like Chekhov's gun type.
Yeah,
feel,
exactly.
like.
But it was subtle enough that I didn't pick up on that, so it was a surprise. And it
I
was
had no idea anything like that was coming in the third act. I thought I wasn't sure how they were padding out a 2 hours 20-minute runtime, and that's how they did it by absolutely sending it into overdrive.
Third act.
Yeah. I would have been quite satisfied had it have stayed the 2 acts between Elizabeth
like I say, I would have felt like the plot was complete with like her Sue being on stage and then
then falling apart
on stage. That was kind of what I thought was going to happen. And I would have kind of felt that to be a satisfying conclusion, just not that surprising. But then to have her parallel what's her name? Elizabeth.
Sorry, which one? Elizabeth, the main
Demi
character.
Moore,
Yeah, Elizabeth Sparkle.
Yeah, again, which makes perfect sense, right? Because she's a copy, so that she reacts exactly the same way. And then just this like insane, like amazing, prosthetics, practical effects, so much blood.
I mean, the blood split. It was like firefighters.
Yeah.
And the reactions from
or the
crowd.
overacting.
Yeah.
I love the like sort of they pounding on that one person to like
absolutely
lose
monster. Yeah.
Shoot it, and so on. Yeah, loved it. It injected a little bit of B movie to it.
Yes,
it was very A movie throughout the first 2/3,
but in a very it was
a 10 out of 10
purposeful.
way.
It was purposeful, right? It was an artistic choice.
It was on message, right? Like it was,
But then again, every character except for the main character felt to me a caricature of something. They represented. They were all very one-dimensional, purposely so. Not in a bad way. They were meant to be.
Yeah.
You had the character of I can't think of his name. Only like Ned from.
Ned Ryerson, but it was like
Dennis Quaid.
No, the guy that comes up to her on the street that knew her.
Yeah,
from
near
school.
the beginning.
Oh,
I can't think what his actual name was. But it was just like
Ned Ryerson. Yeah.
Wait, it wasn't that actor, was it?
No,
I don't think so.
No, just like a similar type.
His
type of
name
character.
was just like Ned. It was like Fred,
right. Yeah, it was Fred.
Yeah.
It was Fred. Yeah.
Remember
Craig?
Fred?
Oh,
Yeah, it was Fred.
Yeah, it was very similar. Yeah.
But and then all the other men were just one thing. So you got like a weird neighbor character, awkward, bit of a nerd, and doesn't know how to speak to women. That's all his character was in that scenario. Then you've got the casting 2 guys who were just
kept coming back. Yeah. Do you know? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like you reminded me that for me the saddest and in a way most horrific part of the film that really impacted me was when she Demi Moore arranges a date with that Fred. And then she keeps like seeing that billboard of Sue, and then she keeps going back and adjusting her makeup, and then eventually, she like rubs it all off and makes her hair, and then she just sits and ignores.
Bit of the
I found that so sad, so powerful.
The metaphor basically.
Yeah.
That's the last moment in the film that she can go and live a normal life, right? Because she's had one finger, she's had a warning shot, and that is her now arthritic 100-year-old looking finger, but she could live with that. Yeah. She could live with that. You
couldn't resist. She was like addicted, basically.
Yeah,
it was
But she had an opportunity in that moment to go out with someone who would still see her in a sexual way. Like that's the only reason she's really going out with this guy is for her own benefit that he can see her as an attractive woman, because
And also as a big star as well,
And a
which
big
is kind
star.
of derided at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so it's that idea, I think, that she wants to go out with him, because she has no sexual interest in this man. She's not attracted to him
Poor
in
Fred,
any.
man.
But it's true.
Well, it's kind of no. I mean, it's kind of cynical, I guess. I mean, maybe she did.
Yeah, but she's a cynical character. She's not.
Yeah.
She's a part of the Hollywood system. Like,
Yeah. She called him out of loneliness. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
definitely, it was like there was self-serving motivations, definitely.
Yeah.
but well, then you could say that about all love, really, couldn't you? That it's
Oh, yeah,
part of
exactly, you know,
self-serving.
like-
Well, everything anyone
Yeah.
ever does
Yeah.
is to a certain extent selfish.
But it's always
so-
heightened within the Hollywood system, you know,
Mm.
and especially for women in that scenario, an aging woman on her own. It's just not right, is it? It's just not right to see an aging woman on her own. Like, they should
love
be
that.
married off.
Get the cats in.
Yeah,
Love
yeah.
that.
But that's all the stuff they're playing with throughout the movie. To me, is that
Yeah.
idea of aging and what that can lead to, and how that we actually, when we're young, we wish away this time, right? So you'll see that she feels old when she is coming up to 50 years old and when she turns 50. But when she sees that finger, and when then again she wakes up a few weeks later when she's really taken advantage and she's got old grey hair and her legs and her knees aren't working, she realizes in that moment that now she is like 80 something, but she had a good 30 years
Yeah.
before she ever
Well, she's
got
not
to that
living in
point.
the present. She's living
No.
in the past. She's already hating the present, so she's not even thinking about the future, is she?
But she would have taken back her 50-year-old self when she looks 80.
Yeah.
But she doesn't see it. She doesn't see it when she's there until it's too late. You know,
Yeah.
and it's this idea that we do that in life, that we don't see what we've got now and what we live in that moment. We actually are always looking for something else or reminiscing on something and not enjoying that moment we're in. So it's a big part of aging, and you'll
Never
see
mind the
people-
fact that she's basically somewhat famous, dwindlingly famous, but very rich woman that could have.
Yeah. Well, she
whatever
lives
she
probably in the
wanted,
best
enjoy whatever-
apartment in LA.
enjoy her life as much as she could, but she's hung up on basically what Hollywood's told her that she needs to be hung up on. It's her age. Like, that's the reason she can't work. And then she feeds into that, yeah.
So what do you think about the old man character that basically gets her into it in the first place? Because like
Yeah.
I mean,
find that a little strange.
Yeah.
We did have a little chat about this, didn't we? But like it's a bit strange that he's spending his youth working at the hospital, and also that he's got the power to recruit someone.
Well,
I
yeah,
guess.
because in that moment you think he might be the guy on the other end of the phone. Is
Yeah.
that? But when we later see him as an old man with Elizabeth in the cafe, he then is just another.
He's sharing the same
Yeah,
struggles,
he's in the
basically.
same struggles
Yeah.
as her.
He's on the same timeline, just a bit slower.
yeah, I was pretty confused why the younger version would be particularly motivated to recommend her to the system.
Unless she was part of the.
Yeah, I mean, if you work for the company,
Yeah.
that would make a bit more sense. Yeah.
I think
I
potentially
also
that's the only.
yeah, I also wonder if you think it would have been more kind of consistently on message if that character was female as well. Like, it's interesting that it's a man, right? It kind of makes it more about aging generally rather than just about.
Well, you could argue that he is taking advantage of her vulnerable state when she's just been in a car crash. He is there not thinking of her. He's thinking of. He has an ulterior motive. We don't know what that is. He potentially is getting money for that, or he's getting free treat. I don't know. But there is something.
Maybe the younger version does work for the company.
Yeah.
Is getting loads of benefits for it, and the older version is.
And
just
that might be
biting
the
the
only.
bullet off of-
Yeah, it might be the
Yeah.
only reason he's in hospital, because I mean I go into hospitals to do radio show and requests and stuff, and a lot of the people in there are very old, so they would do anything to be 20 again, to be that age, you know, to live
But
it
at the
again.
same time, we don't see any kind of cash payments for the substance, do we?
No, we don't.
Which is interesting. She is just invited and then
Yeah.
takes part as if it's some kind of experimental.
You assume though that there is some sort of payment. They just didn't bother to put that in.
Perhaps, yeah.
I would assume so, because it seems to be only kind of richer people doing that. It doesn't seem to me that, and you have to, because it's in America. You would also think that a Hollywood actress probably goes to a
Put it on the insurance.
Well, if you look at the hospital when she leaves the hospital, it's a very high-tech looking building. So you assume that it is basically this very established where all the Hollywood stars go. So potentially getting a job there, you really can reap those benefits and money and get commission for bringing people in. Maybe, who knows?
Well, if there is no payment though, then you have to kind of look at the substance as a metaphor for something, right? Because
or maybe that's why they left it out.
yeah. And then I mean, I'm just thinking about this right now. Like, what would that metaphor be? And I guess like kind of.
Well, is it like trying to reinvent yourself to fit the ideal that they're asking for?
Well, or living vicariously through someone younger. Yeah, maybe perhaps. Who isn't you, because they don't share a brain, right?
Well, they do share. Well, it's interesting.
No, well, like
isn't
she has,
but she fights it, right? She immediately lapses into kind of us versus them mental issues. If she was a whole person and was using it purely for her benefit rather than to distance herself from who she is now, then it could have been a healthy dynamic. But I don't think it was possible because she went into it with the wrong aims.
Yeah.
Well, Elizabeth.
Yes.
Well, she went into it with the aim that presumably everybody goes into it, which is to how do they sell it?
She wanted to be young. She didn't want to experience being young. She wanted to be young again. She wanted to leave everything
you think,
she had behind.
You think it was more important to her that it wasn't even actually her consciousness experiencing it, but that someone...
She wanted to completely remove herself from the equation and be young again and be a completely different... Like, be a new person again. It's respected.
But it is through rose-tinted glasses, though, because when the first time that she wakes up and Sue has been having fun and she's left her house in an absolute state with pizza boxes and food and drinks and stuff everywhere, you realise that actually being youthful and immature is an annoyance to an older person who has lived through that already and lived a life. And it's like she is a mother going into the room and going, oh my God, what you lived through this mess.
This thing about like mother and child is interesting though, because then like for me, that kind of connects back to the whole like living vicariously through your children. You mold your child to be an image of you and then it backfires, right?
And she also disapproves of the way that she presents herself, so how Sue presents herself onto the stage, because whereas Elizabeth was doing fitness classes for women, and if you look at the beginning, they're all kind of normal-ish looking women.
Yeah.
And they're all doing classes.
Primarily the sex appeal that she's doing.
No, she's doing it for women.
Whereas... Yeah, but I mean, do you get the sense though that Elizabeth, if she was younger, would have done it exactly like Sue?
Well, yes,
and
but
I think that's the point. That's the whole point of Sue, right? Is that's what that she is Elizabeth.
Yeah, but
just younger.
It also says something about the state of our society, right? Because this lives in. Well, we were arguing earlier about where it might be set, and I think it's
certainly not in the modern day. If it is in a however, we could align it to
Harvey, the character Dennis Quaid's character,
yeah.
Dennis Quaid's character Harvey, he has a mobile phone, and they do take great care to show you that phone and him picking it up off the table when he is firing her.
Yeah.
So I thought before that it was in the 80s. And then you see that. You also see she has a big plasma TV in her room. But when Sue is in the office, there are all these smaller like TVs from the 80s that are in there, and they're all showing the image of her lips.
Yeah.
So it's, I think, very... it's done purposefully, very purposefully.
It's in its own world.
Yeah, it doesn't live. It lives in like a Black Mirror
maybe
world.
To a certain extent.
Yeah,
it's like it's a timeless.
Yeah,
setting.
it's like a dystopia basically.
But you
right?
could also say
like Black Mirror.
Because of that, because of its timelessness, it's the plight of women throughout time. Like it is a timeless issue. It has just been going on and on and on, and continues to go on. And in the modern day, you've got hypersexualization of women. Like it's always been there, but it's more overt now. There's a lot more to it these days, and there's a lot more kind of flesh allowed on TV in those sexually aggressive ways. The thrusting motions. I thought of the "Call on Me" music video from the 2000s.
From the height of this kind of thing.
Yeah,
in the 2000s. Yeah.
So that's the sort of thing I was thinking of with Sue. However, Sue is a product of her time, whereas when Elizabeth was doing the dancing, it was very different. It was dated to what we know now. And she has the big socks. She's wearing this sort of leotards and doing it like these old moves. Whereas today, it's much more overtly sexual. In my view, it all adds into this idea.
Yeah. Well, there's more competition for attention, right? And so you always have to keep one-upping in order to be the one that people watch. And so yeah, it's like inevitable that it's like a moving target always, and you always have to one up.
Yeah,
to get the audience.
But I think it's definitely powered by the men in the movie rather than the women. It's not powered by Sue. Sue's only doing what she knows Dennis Quaid wants from her. Because he wants someone young and hot and new, doesn't he?
He does.
'Cause that's exactly what he wants. I think he says at one point in the movie, "That's exactly what I wanted, what I asked for." Yeah. So.
Yeah,
So you think it's like the executives that are like doing the choreography then, not the women?
Not necessarily the choreography, but if the women are doing the choreography, it's to appease those men, isn't it? It's to appease Dennis Quaid and his creepy businessmen that were standing behind him.
But just in general, if the demand isn't there, it wouldn't happen. But there is this demand in our modern times.
Yeah, because sex sells and always has sold.
And always will. That's the thing. It always will. Because it's animalistic, and you can see that theme in there, and the meat and animals and this idea of like flesh is throughout the movie. You have it with the prawns, with Dennis Quaid's character with the prawns, and how aggressively and it's sort of
munching and crunching and mouth openness and noisy.
It's
I mean it's actually interesting that you pick up that as a theme of flesh, and that definitely makes sense, and of course like the whole substance and the ultimate body horror, it definitely plays into that theme of flesh as well. But the thing about the prawns could also be like consumption.
Definitely.
I mean like celebrities, but especially women, are definitely consumed by Hollywood, and then Sue is literally consuming Elizabeth, right, in order to be even more.
Well, the entire movie is set in like a consumerist hellscape, basically. So
Hollywood,
exactly.
Take the idea. The chicken comes throughout. It comes back again, and a chicken when it's new is really lovely. It's great. You can cook it. It's lovely. It's fresh.
Things becoming aged and therefore less worthy, worse. Yeah. Similar kind of...
Not ready for consumption, or not suitable for consumption anymore.
Yeah, or at least if there was an alternative, you wouldn't consume it.
Yeah.
I found interesting that Sue, whenever she is on screen, the camera angles are much more sexually aggressive.
Yes, you can definitely see that.
They
like,
do
the way that
angles from below her, looking up, and they do
shot.
They do butt shots, but they also do crotch shots as well, which is a big old no-no. Like, you don't do crotch shots, but this film really does do that.
Yeah, and it's an aggressive zoom technique. It hammers home like the sexualization and the consumerism and the
even the camera I thought was really interesting.
Exploitation.
The camera itself is like the eye of man, and it you can see it gets excited, like it will zoom in at one point and stuff, and it's like, oh, men are watching, men are being turned on by this. So I saw that as like the male gaze. I really saw that.
I think so.
In that camera.
Were you expecting? I don't know what you knew going in, Joe, but did you
Nothing.
not? Well, were you expecting a male or female writer director?
I
didn't think about it.
Okay, fair.
I didn't think about it. However, I don't know. So tell me more.
Well, no, I was just curious. What do you know now?
No, I don't have a clue.
Oh, well, it's a female, like a female writer and director, the same person.
Well, it makes sense after seeing it, but I still wouldn't know.
Yeah. Well, I was just curious. You were talking about the male gaze, and obviously, both sexes can appropriate that, probably for different purposes. I think its use was clearly intentional, like to highlight it specifically. I think. Especially focusing on Sue, like framing her in that way, and then not framing the other, like Elizabeth in that way. It's very intentional, right?
It purposefully shows you the camera people, and they're all men, and it does a lot of zooms on the actual camera lens, and it's like enunciating the zooms. Basically, it's hammering home the fact that the men are only interested in these parts; they're not interested in the fitness element that Elizabeth was presenting. Yeah.
And there's something in the idea of youth as well. So just the idea of youth to this male audience, it's much more for them in general. So if you look at the, did you notice when they replace the picture with Sue in the corridor at the studio? Do you notice how airbrushed it looked at all?
Well, the first picture of her.
Yeah, that's in the orange studio. Sue in the orange studio when she goes in there. Well, I noticed anyway that it's airbrushed,
Right.
and it makes her look about 6 or 7 years younger than she already is, and she's already very youthful looking, but she looks like in that picture she's about 14 or something. So it's this idea of obsession of youth, and that they're looking for a woman aged between 18 and 30 because 18 is the legal requirement. But the airbrushing,
Well, if they can sell it younger, then they will. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
And they do within that picture, because I noticed that none of the pictures of Elizabeth look anything really like her. It's all airbrushed, and then all the pictures of Sue are all airbrushed to make her look younger, and she's already supposedly like 18 to 21, somewhere in that bracket within the movie. And they make her look even younger within the pictures of her on the walls.
Well, that's what they've been doing for like decades and decades, basically, since the 80s or possibly before. They've been, especially on posters and magazine covers and so on. Yeah. People's skin doesn't look like people's skin. It looks like plastic. Yeah.
And in a way, it's all calling on just modern times as well with social media, because there is no social media within this, but there is this idea of the both characters are obsessed with how they are perceived. So it's all about the perception of others that would make them feel something. So a like, if it was online, it would be a like, or it would be a love on Instagram, a heart or something. There's all this idea of image, which is a huge part of being famous today. And it's something that no woman can get away from in Hollywood. If you look at when we were researching recently, we're doing a podcast on Jennifer's Body, and in that research I've looked at YouTube videos of Megan Fox from the time and today, and if you look back at like 2008 when she was doing Transformers, you see that a lot of the comments were like, oh, she was so pretty then, she was perfect then, why did she have to go and do all that surgery? And it's a theme that comes out all the time. And in this time when she was in Transformers, I think she was about 18 or 19. And it's this idea of going, oh yeah, she was so good back then, she looked great, why did she have to ruin herself with all this surgery?
Yeah. Well, it's just your classic sexism that's pervaded everything for decades and decades. And I think something else as well. Basically, when she says, like, I think my mom used to listen to that, and a lot of the time through it, it's like my mom was a fan of this. They're not selling to those people. They don't care about the middle-aged
They're leaving
female
them behind.
audience.
Yeah,
They're only
it's
trying to sell to the men for the sexuality
The
and
18,
the young
18
women,
to
perhaps.
35 demographic,
Yeah.
male demographic.
And that's all that's
Yeah,
important.
it's definitely
Yeah.
distancing yourself from the mums, right? When she makes a comment like that,
Yeah.
she's like trying to distance
But you
herself.
It's
notice-
unimportant what those people want or
Yeah,
want to consume.
yeah.
It is all the time distancing from for women, like, and going to men in a sexual way. So everything that is for women in this is like slowly taken away for
Not
those
worth the
middle-aged
time,
women, not worth
because
the time.
all of the executives are men, and because
Yeah.
all the people in control are men, the
And
people
all they
behind the
want to
camera.
see is a sexy young woman whose boobs aren't sagging, who hasn't got like birth
who's
marks.
a product, basically.
Yeah.
She doesn't have anything presented about her that isn't sexual. So they're just looking for the next product that they can sell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's an object in their eyes. Sue is just an object of desire
Indeed.
to these men throughout the movie, and you get that great scene where she's her teeth are falling out at the end, and then she bumps into Harvey and with all of the executives, and they all look basically the same, old
Yeah,
grey.
Middle-aged.
I was thinking
or
like a
old
copy.
white
It's like a
men.
copy and
Yeah.
paste, like
Yeah,
in the background.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And you know,
they're all making lewd faces and kind of like
Telling her to
gawpy
smile.
gestures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they, he does that the famous line that women get all the time about, oh, you have to smile, why aren't you smiling? Like,
Yeah.
that old chestnut, and she has to try and
her
she
acting in that
can't.
scene is amazing. By
It's
the way,
incredible.
that smile that she gives, yeah, the closed mouth smile. like painful.
with sad eyes.
Yeah,
kind of thing,
yeah,
like Pearl,
yeah,
basically,
yeah.
kind of.
I mean, Margaret Qualley's her whole performance is incredible throughout the movie as well.
Yeah.
Like, she has this instinctive care for Elizabeth within the start, and then gets obsessed with the Hollywood system. There is this instinctiveness to help her like mother figure at the start, and then slowly that gets eroded as she gets more and more
Only
entrenched.
really at the start though.
It is
Only practically just after she's born.
Like the very first one, really.
And then
yeah.
after that point, she's just like a nuisance. An
yeah,
obstacle.
I think that she becomes resentful of Elizabeth before Elizabeth becomes resentful of Sue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Elizabeth has more reason to be resentful because, later on, Sue has to clean up a bit of mess and stuff in the house, but Elizabeth is literally having her body rotted and her body like attacked by this person. So
but that all happens like after Sue's already like moved her out of view, right? Taken her out of the bathroom, put her in like that little secret area in the back of the bathroom that she builds.
Yeah,
like, that's the first thing that happens, right? That happens before. Elizabeth's finger goes rotted.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
really,
also takes that point and also uses that hidden area to hide away. Not sure it's necessarily something Elizabeth sees as. I mean, obviously, psychologically, from Sue's perspective, that is hiding away what she doesn't want to see.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that Elizabeth takes that as a full assault, like insult.
No, not necessarily. That's what I'm saying, though. That I'm saying that Sue, like, she does that, and is trying to like hide away, because she wants to bring her man back, right? She's planning to like live her life and doesn't want like
the old woman.
Yeah, the old woman there.
But then again, you couldn't really have that person just lying there the whole time. There would have to be some sort of secret place that they could swap and share. At that point, I'm not thinking that she is in it for herself.
No, I think she was giving looks to the body, like resentful looks, and then she hid it away.
There is that in there, but
Yeah.
I do think they would have at some point had to have hid the body, whatever the case, whichever one it is.
Yeah, but
Dual
it's
benefit practicality.
but it's her that does it though. It's her that does it, not the older woman.
I mean, it's interesting that she does that, and she does this DIY, which is normally seen as a manly thing to do, and I thought he was playing on the idea of potentially a Mary Sue type character. If you've seen that in Nine, like someone who's very good at something without having any experience at doing it.
Oh, right.
And I thought they were almost playing on that idea that she is good at this without having previously done it, and being able to somehow this character is able to make a doorway and to look at this, and they're really there's more to them than meets the eye, and that she isn't completely, which is almost a loss of innocence in a way to that character, that she's able to do this, and there's actually much deeper. She's not one-dimensional. There's much deeper, and there's a lot more to that.
She has more of a skill set than you would
She has
expect.
more skill set, but it's not necessarily explained. And to me, it's almost like a play on the idea of a Mary Sue. Like I know people complained about the Rey Skywalker character being able to do everything without practicing it.
Yeah,
I think it's interesting that the younger version does that, because her time is more valuable to her than the older version.
exactly.
So
That's exactly my point. That's exactly my
She
point.
could have got the older version
Exactly.
to do it.
That's exactly
she would
my-
have got the older version.
That was
version
exactly
to
my
do it.
point.
Yeah,
That like it's really telling that she does that. The old woman doesn't leave the house.
yeah.
She spends the whole time watching TV, and she's not the one spending the time to do that. I mean, I guess she is older, and so it's harder for her. Sure,
But society, she's only 50. This is the ridiculousness of it, that she becomes isolated, but she's only 50. She's still a very attractive woman.
Oh yeah, no,
She's still a
absolutely.
really
yeah.
wonderful woman with a big personality who does a lot, is a self-starter, has become famous in her own right. And yet she feels so insecure, that she doesn't
But her
leave the house.
insecurity has been reinforced by everything around
Absolutely,
her. And
it's
that's why
been
she can't
reinforced.
go out and see Fred Ryerson.
Yeah. Because there's this huge thing about youth, and that she is being thrown away into the trash because she is done. She's not having a period anymore. She's not fertile. She's not worth it. That's how society sees women. And the idea of the egg comes back again. Well, what's the egg? You know, what is the egg? It's like a birthing thing. It's fertility. So you come back to that idea again and that theme.
It's also a beginning as well.
It's interesting that you mentioned like the menopause and the theme of birth, because of course, like it literally opens with an egg, right? Like an eggs recur throughout the whole film, but she does essentially give birth to Sue, right? It's interesting.
Yeah.
Again, this is why I was kind of thinking more about like parents, especially older parents. Maybe they have their kids a bit later. They're trying to live through them. I don't know. That was my thought going through the whole thing.
It can definitely be interpreted in that way.
Yeah.
And we've only just said it 2 hours ago or something.
So
maybe I will circle around and think that is actually the better interpretation. It is quite strong by the fact that she is born out of the body of.
Yeah.
And we never see Demi Moore with any family anyway.
Yeah, and then also, the relationship is symbiotic as well, where the younger has to look after the older also. Again, like an elderly parent, and then she does become older and older as well, as she deteriorates even further.
Well, it is something that happens again and again. So I worked as a carer for about 3 years with old people, and there is a trending theme, and it never go away. It'll always be the same. Is that the older person becomes more and more isolated as they lose more of their control over their lives. They lose their independence. They're no longer able to walk properly. They can't get up off their sofa. And the younger person feels obliged, like the son or daughter feels obliged to help them, but then they resent that. And I've seen that firsthand. There's this resentfulness from a younger person that it's putting their lives on hold, and before long they are going to be that age as well, and they're not going to live their life properly because they've been doing this for too long, looking after this other person. So there's this resentfulness, there's aging.
Well, Sue literally uses looking after her mother as an excuse for not being able to work every other week, right?
Yeah.
Like I think it's
said in plain text.
I think it's very clear, like actually, at least that's one reading.
And they make Elizabeth in the end, after she's been asleep for 3 months, and Sue has used up her youth entirely. It's funny that they make her look so grotesque when she's back, because we're all wincing at the way she looks. The people in the cinema are going, "Oh God, she's old." That's just what happens. And we do not like to face death. And we do not like to face the idea of aging and losing our looks.
And also we're very rarely subjected to that as something to see anyway. Media never presents that anyway. So no wonder it's somewhat shocking.
And isn't it funny, though, when that happens, everyone just goes, "Oh, old."
Yeah, I mean, they were definitely framing it within the movie as a horrific thing, right? Like with the... Like there's like the tension of the boyfriend like discovering the elderly woman in this case, right? And then there's kind of tension about being able to shut the door. But the movie is definitely framing this elderly version of Elizabeth as a monster, and it is true what you're saying. Although it's funny, because when they're fighting each other, she's a pretty fucking indestructible old lady, don't you think?
Yeah.
She takes a lot,
especially as she struggled to walk out of the bathroom to start with.
Yeah,
and now she's like a tank.
Yeah.
Well, I reckon that's more for the movie than anything else.
Yeah. Probably a bit like Sue's super strength, like throwing her like across the whole room. Yeah.
Just because that's where it really hits overdrive in that scene. It really takes off in a different way, and I think the first 2 parts of the film are more. And they're not based in reality at all.
More like
more based
grounded in like
sure.
Yeah.
But as the whole thing probably is supposed to be taken somewhat as a metaphor. It's fine that those kind of things are unbelievable. That just hammers that home.
And there's the idea of ritualistic. I can't say the bloody word. Ritualistic. I can't say
Ritualistic.
Ritualistic. Yeah. So ritualistic in the sense that when she is putting the makeup on. And then she sees the billboards you were talking about earlier, and then she goes back and puts the makeup on in a different way and looks like this happens time and time again for women, right? And this idea of
it's also a mirror with the fact of comparing yourself to the media as well. It is a billboard. You're comparing yourself to what the media presents as what you
an airbrush picture, of something,
which is an 18-year-old or 19-year-old perfectly. Presented
it's one of the saddest
advertising.
I find that scene very sad too.
And it's one of the. It's very performance art It's very like I've seen it done on stage a few times where they're doing the makeup and then rubbing it off and going crazy. So it's not a new concept, but the way it was done was really well shot, and she's sort of going into this insanity, like she's going down, and there's no way out. She cannot escape, because that was her last chance, as we said, is kind of to escape this idea of that she needs Sue.
I mean, what do you think that she was getting out of keeping Sue going? Like
A life, like she's, as you say, she's living through it.
yeah, but I mean, when you were watching the film, did you think that they were sharing experiences, or that they were two completely different
Well,
consciousnesses?
they presumably were in actuality.
I thought they were, yeah. They didn't really explain it,
but she had jealousy and envy mixed up in her, like
So
enjoyment of what the other version of herself was doing. Yeah, that's why she decides not to terminate in the end, because she realizes that although I hate this person as I am now, I still want to be this person, and I know that I can be this person if I switch again.
So you think it was one consciousness?
Yeah.
So then, how do you explain them both being awake at the same time?
Well, I mean, it's down to she didn't do the full vial of the Terminator serum, right?
So what you're saying,
maybe
that
it's
half the
the connection.
yeah.
So then,
somehow...
a consciousness spontaneously goes in. I thought immediately that they split straight away, like a clone.
Yeah.
And for me, I think that works better. Again, like with the parent-child thing, it works better. And like the resentfulness, I think, is kind of easier to understand.
But then whenever she calls the helpline, they say you are one person, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in effect, I think they are. I think she has an understanding of what the other person's doing, whether it's televised or put on advertising.
She also Sue sees red, right? And then she just destroys Elizabeth, and she puts the final nail in the coffin.
But only because Elizabeth struck first in terms of actual violence, trying to use the term.
I think that they're like kind of like war makes much more sense if they're separate consciousnesses as well. I also think that
it's a fractured single consciousness, which is the same thing, right?
Yeah, but like, well, the question is whether or not they can experience what the other person has experienced. You know, if they have any memory of it. When
I think they did, but they broke the rules and they broke the idea.
But earlier in the movie, like when we first see Sue on TV, my interpretation of Elizabeth's reaction was that was news to her, that she couldn't believe what she was seeing. And I do remember the scene that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
To me, she didn't look like she knew that was going to happen, and that she was actually surprised. And that...
No, but if we're taking that as the truth, then why is she doing it? Why is she switching? If she doesn't know what this other person's doing, why would she ever switch?
Well, that was why I was asking the question originally.
To be honest, I don't think there is any one definitive answer.
Well, no, of course
I think
not.
you can just
that's why they don't explain
go around in circles with it.
Yeah. I think it's a merge between the two a little bit.
Yeah.
And as the movie goes on, they do become more and more separate.
They start as one and drift apart, but then Sue realizes right at the end, oh shit, we are one, when it flashes up on the screen again. Mm-hmm. And then she feels this deep regret over what she's done. And she's in shell shock when she goes back for the New Year's Eve ball. Before then, the rest of her being just implodes.
Can we just talk real quick about the score? We didn't talk about it at all, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah,
I mean that's basically all I had to say. But it's really cool. And then so the
reminded me of Challengers.
The electronica was really cool, but there was also like a wheel coming through every now and then.
Yeah, like, there's another one for the buttons.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Also kind of cat-like.
Like it's
too.
quite it's true. Yeah. Which is very so the electronica, like I was kind of enjoying, and then whenever that sound came on, it really it makes you uneasy. Like I found it like really
it's a good like atmosphere setting soundtrack. It's good at like presented with the visuals, building the tension, even though nothing's really happening. She's looking in the mirror, but you can insert yourself into why she would feel tense, and it's really good at doing that.
I just really think this is a So I really think this is just a really fantastic film.
It really is.
And we should wrap it up.
Yeah.
Go on, Dave.
Well, all I can say is I can't wait to watch it again.
Yeah. So what would you give it out of a 10?
Out of 10? Well, first watch. I'm going to go 8.
But I'd give it a 9, I think. Because 8 is usually this is a standout good horror film. And I think this is slightly better than that. It's not completely flawless. I don't think it's like a best of all time Mount Rushmore Pantheon horror movie, but it's very, very good.
I find it interesting that it's getting very wide-reaching audience. I think there's a huge audience. We'll see how this grows over time, and I'm going to give it a 9 as well. I'm going to give it a 9.
Me, Jack.
Yeah. I don't mind.
Did you invent giving films 9s?
Yeah,
did you, Mike?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah,
the number 9 was invented.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What did you think of it as well? So if you're listening or watching, comment. Let us know what you thought of it. And if you haven't seen it yet, why did you watch all of this and spoil it for yourself? Go and see it now and then let us know. Leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, do all of that bollocks. Bye.
Bye.